our weekly meeting of Pragya CS Studio. Hearty greetings from Adyar to all sisters and brothers that join us from India and from other corners of the world. Today is a pleasure having Brother Mathurnath once more with us on the very relevant and interesting topic, the causal body. But before we start formally our meeting, let's come together with the universal prayer. Oh, hidden life, vibrant in every atom. Oh, hidden light, shining in every creature. Oh, hidden love, embracing all in oneness. May all who feel themselves as one with thee know they are therefore one with every other. So before starting our meeting, just the technical reminders, keep the microphones off and write all your questions, comments on the chat or raise your hand whenever the time for question and answer comes after our brother Mathurnath finishes his talk. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce Brother Mathurnath, who is born in Chennai and has been a member of the Madras Theosophical Federation since 2018. And he has been a keen reader of the theosophical literature. Actually, now we were just talking about that. Now he is studying for second time the secret doctrine, and he really is making a great job of compiling all this wisdom and sharing it with us through these talks. And it's actually the aspiration that he has. He aspires to spread the literature to those who seek. He's compiled the books of etheric double, astral body, mental body, causal body, and the solar system in order to make the reader acclimatize to the actual literature. And at the end of his talks, he always recommends to read the book. Actually, his talks are a way of motivating us to go and read and study in depth these wonderful books. And he motivates us to do that in order to understand the truth deeply and to concretize the theosophical teachings in a tangible way. He aspires to spread the teachings by practicing diligently amongst the youth, the young minds of the nation. So we warmly welcome our dear brother Mathurnath, and please enlighten us today with this interesting subject that you have brought.
Sure. Thank you so much. So let me start. My screen is visible, right?
Yes, it's coming perfect.
Thank you. Thank you. So good evening, all of you. I'm Mathurnath from Chennai. So the work which I've been doing is as an instrument in carrying the teachings of the Theosophy to the modern day youth. And we always have one line which says that the Theosophy, founded in 1875, has its books of 1942 languages, the language of English, which was there in 1942. So it has the archaic expression. But the beauty is that there is a depth involved in these lines. So if we have to reach out to people who expect things to be spread on a plate and be given it to them. So one way which I thought of creative expression could be that, okay, let's make a presentation and give it to them in a simplified manner, but never the diluted manner, but a simplified manner, and let it be a tool. I wouldn't say that this is the end of it, but a tool that you can start reading the actual book so that you say, okay, this is what was told in the presentation and this is what is given in the book. And now let's start getting the deeper aspects of what is being discussed. So basically, this compilation works as an instrument. I'm doing it. So we will be taking care of each topics every month as the days go. So we started with the solar system. So there are two ways of approaching the whole gamut of things. Either you start from bottom and you go top, or you take a top-down approach. So we have taken the top-down approach. So what we have done is, the last talk of mine was on the solar system. Now it is on the causal body. So as time goes, we'll get down, we will get into the mental, then the astral, then the etheric double. So that's going to be the sequel which we are going to adopt, because it's easier to understand the bigger picture first and then get down into the into our daily details. And as I mentioned, which I keep mentioning in my every class, what is theosophy? Because we need to deeply reflect on that question. And every time we come up with the same wordings, but with a different levels of understanding of the truth. So basically, what do we know by theosophy? As simple as that, which has been put by Blavatsky herself, that it conveys the truth and it is a joint of religion, science, and philosophy. So it's like your Thomas Faraday's example, right? You have this three-pointer rule, and then each one is on the each side. But nevertheless, please don't forget that you have a hand from which these three fingers are pointing out. So that means this hand, you take it as a wisdom. So you have a common truth or a wisdom which has been conveyed in the form of truth, in the form of science, in the form of philosophy. So let's understand that. So coming back to this topic, from the solar system where we discussed about the bigger picture of the chains, rounds, and then the supernormal evolution and the logoic scheme of creation of how the whole logos got created, how the cosmos, how the logos, and how you and me have come into the being, and how we are related spiritually. So it is from somebody's living life or living being that you and I are having our life, or in whom you and I are having and moving our being. So there are many ways in which we express ourselves, right? So if I say a Mathurnath, now this Mathurnath is not this physical frame of mind with which he operates. He has a physical framework, and then there are some energies within me which makes me alive. And once these energies are withdrawn, I am no more alive within the body. And next, I'm made of emotions and I'm made of thoughts. But above all this, I'm also made of some characters. So now that characters is what is actually giving me the thoughts. That thoughts is what is regulating my emotions, and that emotions are giving me the actions to perform my daily life. The reverse is also true. If I need a new character to be built up within myself, how is it that I do? I bring it into my actions, and then I make it a form of an emotion, and then I give it a thought, and then finally it becomes a part of a character, and then it becomes a big personality of myself. Therefore, that bigger picture within which I am operating, that bigger picture is the bigger cause. So that is called as the Karana. From that cause, I am deriving my causes in terms of a characterization or in terms of my life. And that is the Karana Sharira which I'm taking. So that is what is called as the causal body, because from this is where the thoughts, the emotions, and the actions of the person is being derived at. So we call this as the Karana Sharira or the causal body, because the body which bears the causes. Now the question is, whose causes is it taking? So for that, again, we need to understand the bigger picture of the cosmic creation. And then we need to know that how our personalities are related to that bigger picture. And then from which we derive our bodies, our matter, and then the powers of the causal body, etc. So Powell has made this very clear for us to understand this bigger picture into a very tangible and a concrete form. And in that, he's brought out about a literature. And this literature, he had made it into 5 different parts: the etheric double, the astral body, the mental body, the causal body, and the solar system. So we have done the solar system. We are now getting into the causal body. And then we will be going downwards, as I repeated before. So coming to the point. Yeah. So in the general description, what is the causal body? It is called as the higher manas, which is immortal, coming across several incarnations. So the moment for a student of theosophy, if I say there's a causal body, the first thing which has to relate to him is that this is the one which is giving births on various life forms or various incarnations. So from here is where I'm born today. From here is how I was as an animal before. From here is where I had a living or I had a life form as a plant. And now from here is where I can even enter into my supernormal scheme of evolution, that is going beyond the superhumans. So for the causal body, it carries the memories of lifetimes, not lives, but lifetimes. So therefore, from theosophical perspective, let's say that there is reincarnation. Get it? So after human evolution, even this causal body gets dropped off for the superhuman evolution. And what is this causal body? It is the home of ego and a consciousness that uses a causal body. Consciousness controlling the causal body is what is called as the monad. So the body is there and it is having a control, and there is a higher being who is controlling. So let's say that you have a bigger energies, right? Say the nuclear power plant makes a high voltage of electricity, but that voltage of electricity cannot be supplied to our homes. So you need a step down instruments. In order to make those step down instruments, there are several bodies which has been given. So here we call them as creative hierarchies. In this fashion, we first have the cosmic creation, and then we have a monad who's a representative of that cosmic creation, and he creates a triple aspected form, which we will be which we'll be seeing in the later slides. So he has a triple aspected form, and this triple aspected form together is called as the causal body. And from there, we have which we call as ego, and then from there we have one step down, which is called as personality, and that personality is who you and me are operating in our daily lives. So coming up to that cosmic field, life or spirit and matter are poles of the same source. Now this is what they always say, Mula Prakriti, which they say is on one side, which is called as matter, and then there is something called as spirit, that is the Brahman, which you can call. In the Vedantic, they use the word of the Brahman. And now both of them in the Dvaita Sampradaya or in the Dvaita philosophy, the dualistic philosophy, is called as two different poles, but they are actually from the same source. That's what is Advaita being talking about. I'm not getting into that in details, but I'm trying to give you that what to say, that acquaintances with the terminologies which we use in theosophy and also in the other schools of thought. So you have the spirit, you have the matter. Both of them are two different polarities, but coming from the same source. And they have some fields to play. Okay, they have some fields of evolution, and they have 7 planes, which is broadly categorized into 3. Number 1 is the field of logoic manifestation. Number 2, a field of supernormal evolution. And number 3, normal evolution. The field of logoic manifestation expresses itself on 2 planes, the plane of Adi, the plane of Anupadaka. Actually, the terminology is called Anupapadaka or Anuupapadaka, but like what they say, right? You keep telling Anupapadaka, and as a period of time goes, it got reworded as Anupadaka. Now, what it is, we will be looking at it in the upcoming slides, but just keep this in mind because this is something which we need to know as fundamentals so that we understand the upcoming details much better. So stepping down from that logoic manifestation, you have the supernormal evolution, where the Atman and the Buddhi are the next planes in which we operate. And again, we step down further, where we have a normal evolution, which has the Manas, Kama, and the Sthula. Now, the Sthula, you can take it as the physical and the etheric body. Now the science is talking about the bioenergetic field and the synthetic key, etc. Right? So the chi, which they call. So this Sthula is actually a combination of that energy body as well as the physical body. And the Kama deals with the emotions or the astral body. And the Manas, here they are talking about is the 2 things put together, the abstract thought and the concrete thought. Now, if I have to give you what Manas means, the abstract thought and the concrete thought. Now, what is concrete thought? Simple. Now I say, okay, I'm going to have this meeting. Now, how many people? How do I plan about it? What is that going to be the topic of the day? Who's going to speak? When is it going to happen? These are the details, right? So these details are called as concrete thought. But why is this happening? Because there is a cause to it. That cause is called as abstract thought, the essence of things. Let's take another example. Flower. So you have a flower. What are the aspects of the flower? You need a plant, then petals, color, fragrance. These are the characteristics of the plant or the flower, sorry. But then coming down, you have the individual attributes. A white color petal having such a such fragrance coming from such a such plant will be named as lily. A red color or a pink color one having so and so fragrance coming from so and so place and belonging to a thorny plant is called as a rose, etc., etc. So now these bifurcations, okay, which we do, the distinctions which we do, is the work of what we call as the work of intellect, and that is called as concrete thinking. So this comes from memory. So the manas together is this portion, the one which is dealing with the principles, with the ideas, with the abstract ideas, and the one which is making them in action, the concrete thought. So these two put together is called as manas. The causal body or the karana sharira operates itself in the abstract planes. Okay. Now remember that these 7 planes which we have given, that the Adi and Upapadaka, and then the Atma Buddhi, and below that you have Manas, Kama, Sthula. So these 7 planes do have 7 subplanes within themselves. Okay, so the Manas or the Karana Sharira works on the first 3 higher subplanes of the Manasic plane, and the lower 4 planes has the concrete mind. Okay, let's make this very clear. This is important so that we proceed further. Yes. Now, how did the universal creation come into place? The story which was discussed in the solar system is what I would like to iterate. For the want of time, I'm not explaining it much. But let's say that there is a game and there is a sport, and you have a playground set for the sport. So that playground is what the site is marked out. And then when it happens about the spirit, we're talking about 2 types of creation here: the creation of the consciousness and then the creation of the matter. Because like what we discussed, the spirit and the matter. Now we're talking about how the spirit came in and how the matter came in. The one above, the universal consciousness, is what we're talking about, the spirit. So the logo appears as a point, and then from there it goes into 3 directions, and then it forms its field of operation, and that's how a consciousness is created. Coming up to the matter, you have a virgin space again, like a playground which has been set, and the point is marked, and then from there it moves, and then again it also moves perpendicular to it. Now the question is, why does it move in 3 angles for consciousness, and why does it move perpendicular? This is a question which you can ask. Why? And the answer to it is a homework for you. Read the book, because that's a very beautiful topic to be explained, and for you to have the answer to it, the answer is there in the book. So please read the book. Right. So coming forth of the monads. So what has happened? I have the consciousness, I have the matter, and both of them are created. Now the matter has to be elaborated by itself. But before that, the consciousness has to root in it. So I'm talking now about the consciousness coming forth of the monads. It's simple like this. So in Vedanta, if you see, they say that the Brahman willed, it just thought that it needs a creation, and the creation came into being. I shall multiply and be born. And so rose from the one. The act of will being the first karana or the first logos, the Father or the undivided Lord. Okay. From the flame of the undivided Ishvara or the undetached sparks came something called as monad. So from a bigger flame, they split and they had some smaller tiny bits of consciousness. When they looked at it clairvoyantly, they looked like sparks of flame. That is why in Voice of Silence of Blavatsky, there is a wording called as, I see tiny sparks of flame, O Gurudeva, all coming from the same source. So it's from that universal supreme consciousness that we have these sparks of flame. And these sparks of flame are the tiny bits of consciousness who will be working with this logoic scheme of evolution. And since they are single, right, they looked one, and they are one, in fact, in terms of the consciousness. So we call them as monad because there is nothing other than oneness in them. So they are called as monad. Now, this monad is again a combination of this consciousness and the matter. So how is it called in our Indian literature? It's called as a Jivatman. In the Sankhya philosophy, it is called as the Purusha. The Vedanta, they called it as the self. And in the Christian or in the Bible, it's used as the sons of the Father. So basically, what are we trying to say? That all of them are ekakantas or ekakanti, meaning that they say the same thing, but in their own language. All right, so you have the scheme of the Adi, and from that Adi flame, you have them downsized and you had the monads, the small sparks of being. Now, at this particular point of time, we are just having two planes which has come in operation of the logoic activity. Now we're waiting for the supernormal and then the normal schemes of evolution to have their own being. Okay, now that's what we're going to say. So the monad is a spirit separated by the rare film of matter, which is porous in the nature for the intercommunication of a little encased with the surrounding similar life. And they are the sons of the Father. Now, in the Christian topic, we always have the word called as the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. So the Father is called as the ego, the Son, or even the Son. Sometimes they use it interchangeably, but I call them the Father as the monad. The Son is the ego and the personality put together. Okay. The second logos stands ready to exercise. Now let me make it very clear. We have something called as the first, the second, and the third logos. Okay. And they have their outpouring. And each one give down their streams of creation. And with them, each pattern of life started to unfold both in terms of the matter, in the terms of the planes of matter, and also in the terms of consciousness and creation. Okay. Now, the second logos stands ready to exercise his divine powers, the firstborn among the brethren, and he's awaiting for the lower planes for their manifestation. So now the consciousness is ready, and now it's waiting to have the next outpouring to have the further lower planes. So how are the 5 planes formed? Now, I like to show you how in the diagram, if you see, that you have the third logos coming first because he gives the first outpouring so that they can give rise to the planes. And in this planes, you can have your life forms to create themselves. And the consciousness can keep on multiplying itself and play around in these planes. Now, why is this happening? Because let's understand that the monad or the divine supreme being is pure but not perfect. Now, when we use the term called perfect, it doesn't mean that it is trying to be accurate in what it is trying to do, but it wants to play itself within the boundaries in which it has created. Now, why is it doing this? Is a homework for you and I as a seeker. But let's understand this. Okay, the third logos is now giving the activity and it is giving rise to the formation of subplanes. So the Adi and the Anupapadaka are already ready with the monads because now they're waiting for the Atma, Buddhi, Manas, and the Kamasthula, Shariras, to the planes to have their own creations. So they're now stepping down. So the stepping down is happening, and each plane, as I discussed, you see formation of subplanes to the right. You see there are 7 dots within each plane. So what are we trying to say here is that each plane also has 7 subplanes. And what are those 7 subplanes? Solids, liquids, gases, then etheric, superetheric, subatomic, and atomic. So let's keep this in mind when we are saying the subplanes, because that's important as we discuss the concept of group souls going forward. Right. So the work of the third logos now starts to happen. If you remember, in one of the ancient literature, they say that there was a universal mind which gave rise to several minds. That universal mind was called as Mahat in Vedanta. So if you remember, few of the avatars, a few of the advanced beings were also attributed to the words. For instance, one recent avatar which we had of Lord Krishna, we call him as Anoraniyan and Mahator Mahiyan. So the knower of all, the Mahat. He's the Mahat of the Mahats, is what they call. So this is what it is. The universal mind is called as the Mahat. The third logos throws out three gunas, which is called as the Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas into the matter of space. And now when it threw itself with this unstable chaos, there was a plane which was created. So when these three gunas were given out in that scheme of life, there was a vibration which happened at various places. And depending upon the wavelengths of the vibration, each plane got itself settled. The denser ones came lower, and the ones which were vibrating at a much more higher frequency were at the higher rates. So what happened? There was a sort of not a water tank compartmentation, but still there was a differentiation which happened. So this created the further lower planes of Atma, Buddhi, Manas, Kama, and Sthula. Now you need to have these planes, and in these planes, for the universal consciousness to seep in and play through it, you required a medium. Because this medium was very important to establish the interconnectivity between the life forms. For example, now as I'm talking to you, you need to have an internet. There is a sound, there is light, and there is electricity. And then there are some sort of magnetic waves which is conducting you and making you listen, see, and at the same time understand. So this form of communication, for us to have this interaction between us, you require a medium. This medium in our technical literature we called as fohat. So in these 7 planes and also in the sub 7 planes, we have this fohat. And this fohat gives you the medium, and he electrifies into life and converts pre-genetic matter into atomic matter in 3 stages. How does he do that? Those 3 stages are that for a particular matter, he gives vibration and he fixes the limit of the vibration. So in the solar system, we described about something called as tattva and the tanmatra. So the tattva is that matter, and the tanmatra is that the degree of influence that the matter has in that particular plane of its existence. So that is what is being done with the fohat. So he gives the tanmatra to that particular tattva. And then with that atomic field, he marks the axis to define the shape. And then there is an angle which is given to them, and also vibration determining the walls of the atoms. So from this, what can we understand? When we talk about the further subplanes, you have much more dimensions. For example, the lowest subplane the lowest plane which we have is called as the sthula, or the physical plane, right? Now in this physical plane, if you see, you will have length, breadth, and height, which is basically the 3 dimensions. Next, when you go into the astral, you have 4 dimensions. If I remember it right, the 4th dimension is called as the depth. That is why when you're very emotional, what do you say? From the depth of my heart, I'm feeling for you. From the bottom of my heart, I truly express love, because it's an emotion which you're trying to convey. And even when you have the emotion, you're not even able to convey them verbally, right? So just imagine you are going into the 5D, which is in the mental planes, and then 6D, 7D, and 8Ds, 9Ds. We do not know how many dimensions we exist after a particular point of time. So the expression of them is very limited. So there are moments, especially when we talk about causal body, there are many moments which we cannot express through words, but just by mere understanding it is conveyed. And listen, there is also this point, okay? When the causal body is trying to convey with the lower bodies, it conveys, especially with the human scheme, it conveys through symbolism. That's why, in secret doctrine, you see that there is a specific, complete allocation of the topic for symbolism and the symbolic interpretations. Okay, so coming back, the kingdoms of life. So the second outpouring now comes in. So the first outpouring has created all these planes. Now you need all of them to come down. You need the life forms. So then the second outpouring now casts its life wave into this unproductive matter. This process where it casts itself, the second outpouring comes in self and it starts giving life forms. We call that as incarnate of Holy Ghost into the Virgin Mary. This is what is called as Bible. So we need not look into things very literally, we have to get into the depths and start getting that symbolic interpretations. The life forms reside with periods equal to one planetary chain period. Remember that. And it is called monadic essence, though it technically means matter clothed in atomic matter of planes. Okay. Now, matter descends into the planes and stays till it vibrates at all rates to the planes of matter before it returns to the highest plane. This is very, very important, which we need to know here. Because when we're talking about the scheme of evolution, like what I said, the monad is pure but not perfect. And the reason why it wants to be perfect, for that object of perfection is why it is doing all this play, or the Leela Vibhuti in which it is operating by itself. Okay, so say for example, from the monad, it drops into the first lower plane. And again, there are seven planes. So it will first play completely and get back. Again, it will come to the second lower plane, make it and again go back. Again, it go into the third subplane, has its place and again go back. And like this, it keeps repeating. So therefore, if you come into the causal body, you need to understand one principle which keeps coming up again and again, which should always be in the back of our minds. It's called as the principle or the law of cycles. Because like what we said, the monad vibrates at all rates to the planes of matter before it returns to its highest plane. So it keeps going down, it plays across and gets back, again goes down further, the next plane, and again it planes and gets back. So there is a law of cycle. So the flow of elementals keep themselves replicating at each level, and the second elemental essence keep doing the same, and every plane till it complete evolution has occurred. Now we are talking about from the high, how it went down, from the spirit, how it descended to the matter, and in the matter, how the life pattern came into being. So this process from where the spirit went down, it stepped itself down to express itself across the planes of matter. This entire process we call as involution. That's why we use the word, the essence keep doing the same in every plane till the complete involution is occurred. Similarly, the third elemental essence is reached, and then finally the mineral kingdom is formed in the physical planes. In this process, the involution stops now and the evolution begins. That means in this whole process, the spirit had its play to a very small extent, but the matter was much being focused upon. And the moment the mineral kingdom was formed, it stops there, operating itself purely on the matter, and now it starts giving life and the evolution begins. Now the descent of the matter at various levels. So like what we said, the Adi and Upapadaka, Atman, Buddhi, Manas, Kama and Stula. So when it descended down from the Upapadaka to the Atman, to the Buddhi, and then the Manas, you remember we said that the Manas has 7 subplanes. So it is divided into 2, the higher mental and the lower mental. So in the higher mental, you have subplanes 1, 2, and 3. And here is where you have the first elemental kingdoms, which has been established. The matter, like what we said, has 7 subdivisions. So you have division number 1 in the highest subplane, 2, 3, 4 subdivisions in the second, 5, 6, 7 in the third. And then when it happened into the second elemental kingdom, it came into the lower mental plane. And there you have them taking 2, 2, except for the fourth, which is the highest one in the lower mental plane. The other planes take 2, 2 subdivisions of the elemental essence to have their expression. So thus, in the fourth subplane, 1 subdivision, 5, 6, and 7, you have 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, 7. Now, this is the bigger picture which we're talking about. So the Atma, Buddhi, Manas, Kama, and then the etheric physical. So it has come down, and then from there we have the whole process flowing by the second logos. And then you have the mineral kingdom, which is having its way of expression. And if you see, where is the mineral kingdom having its scheme of expression? It is having its scheme of expression. Let me show it to you. So if you see, the mineral kingdom is having its scheme of expression where? Till the etheric level and a bit on the astral. And then what happens? It moves on to the next kingdom called as the vegetable. We have discussed about it in the previous solar system. So now it is expressing itself not only in the etheric and a bit on the astral. Animals, as you know, are very much emotionally turmoil. So it also works on the etheric, astral, and a bit on the manas. And finally, you have the human, as the name called human, the man or the man with the manas or the being with the manas. And so he not only operates till the karma, but he also operates on the manas. And then he goes down to the scheme of evolution where he touches till the first elemental kingdom. So basically, if you look at it, it means that from the third outpouring which we have become ourselves as individual beings. This process where we were collectively as minerals, a less more collectively as vegetables, a less more collectively as animals, and now finally we are becoming one entity of existence. Okay, one entity of existence. So that is why this process is become one individual existence. And that's why in theosophy we call this process of where from the group you become one. It's called as individualization. In this whole scheme, that there's a weaving which happens between the matter and between the consciousness and the life form and the ways of expression, and then the ways how you communicate, you play around, and what you think and how the characteristics is being placed. All these things is put into your existence, and that is why we call this as weaving, because they have put down as per the divine plan that how a particular person needs to behave, born in a particular place and a particular scheme of time. So all of them do work on another pattern which is called as the scheme of ideation. Okay, so that's another principle which with which we are actually approaching the topic. Clear? Yes. So now what happens? The planes, the matters, the life forms, and the weaving has happened. Now we are going to create a relationship. Now this relationship, like what we discussed, the spirit had its three gunas called the will, wisdom, and the activity. And then the matter has the three things called as the sattva, rajas, and tamas. Now these three are now going to get related together. And this relationship, we call that as the higher triad. And this relationship is what is called as the monad. So the monad has the spirit and the consciousness, the spirit and the matter, sorry. So this spirit and the matter put together, the spirit has its three gunas, which we have will, wisdom, and activity, and the matter has sattva, rajas, and tamas. And here, if you see, it's a beauty. The will, normally, you say that tamas, as we understand, tamas means laziness, right? But here in the theosophy, what we're actually talking about is that the will of the spirit is linked with the inertia of the matter. The matter is not willing to move, so therefore the will is having, and it's making the movement possible. So the will and the tamas are linked together. That is what you can see it as this dotted line. Similarly, activity and mobility are connected together. So the rajas and the activity is come. And wisdom, as you can understand, comes from a calm and a poised nature. So the wisdom and the sattva is connected to each other. That is the rhythm, and then the wisdom is put together. The not moving person and the more willful person making it move is connected. And the mobility factor and then the activity factor of the mind is connected together. Now, this will, wisdom, activity in the monad has 7 forms, like permutation combination if you take. In few cases, the will is dominant. In few cases, the wisdom is dominant. In few cases, the activity is dominant. Then in one case, all the 3 is equal. And then you have 2 dominant, 1 less dominant. So like this, there is a permutation and a combination. So if you see, there is 3, 2, and 1. Will more dominant, 1 case. Wisdom more dominant, activity more dominant. 3, all balanced. 4, and then will, wisdom, and then will activity. That way. So you have totally 7 in this scheme of existence. 3, 2, and 1. So you have 6 if you take it as a permutation, and 1 which has all of them balanced. So that is what is given to us here. So the monads and all this monadic existence is categorized as 7 rays. Where the will is more active, we call them as ray 1. And then the wisdom more active, we call them as ray 2, and so on. We are not getting into that rays right now because that is handled in the later part of the literature, which deals with the ego. So I'm not going to touch there. I'm going to keep myself here. So you have something like this, but just keep in mind that there are 7 rays of existence. So the monads has 7 rays, the matter has 7 rays, and sometimes even, the monad of one ray can also connect itself to the matter of another ray and still have its existence. But just keep this in mind that you do have 7 types of monads and the 7 types of matter. Right. So now what happens? Now they're stepping themselves down from the field of logoic activity. Now they're entering into the supernormal scheme. So the monad, as he had will, wisdom, and activity, the activity poured himself down to the field of existence, and he expressed himself in the lower manas, and he created a mental component of mental atom, okay, which is of pure reason, which is as the higher manas. And similarly, the monad also expressed himself on the buddhic plane as intuition. And he also expressed himself as the spirit. The will aspect of the monad expressed himself in the atomic plane or the atmic plane. Okay, so the primordial existence of monad, the heavenly father, now has a triple scheme of consciousness. He stepped himself down. So you can use the word which NCR sir always uses. He says MBA, okay? Manas Buddhi Atman or Atma Buddhi Manas. Either ways is fine because I'm just using it in the hierarchy. So Atma Buddhi Manas. So you have one scheme. This triple existence of Atma Buddhi or Manas is what we call as ego. But in English literature, if you see, ego is always taken on a very wrong sense. But here, ego is actually one of the spiritual existence. He is the son. Okay, he is the son of that divine father who's called as the monad. But the ego has to express himself down, right? So the ego of mind has to express in this body called Mathurnath, and he takes a physical form, an emotional form, and then the thoughts of concrete mind. That is what is established further, that higher manas establishes itself as intellect in the lower scheme, which is called as the lower manas. And similarly, the intuition or the buddhi has its words of emotions or the astral plane, and it establishes itself as the astral atom. And then the final, you have the physical body, which is established as the physical plane. Now, the aspect of the ego is connected to the physical personal, this triple lower triad of the physical, the physical, astral, and the mental or the lower manas, we call them as personality. Okay, now from the ego, the personality has to have its connections. Now, how does this connection happen? Through another channel. You see that there is a connection which comes here. This connection is called as antahkarana. Okay, so that's how both of them work together as a common joint entity. This is something which we need to do. And this exactly what we call as the monad and its atoms or the lower triad. And you need to understand that this is also the spiritual anatomy, which is what the theosophy is trying to tell people. Clear? So as we have discussed, the Atman, the Buddhi is the field of supernormal evolution. And then you have the field of elemental and the mineral normal schemes and the human evolutions. So you have the individual or the ego, and then you have the personality coming up to you. You need to be very clear about this. And one more point which we also need to discuss here is that from the ego drops down that for this particular personality, this is how his emotions are going to be. This is how his thought patterns are going to be. This is how his physical framework is going to be. So how is that connection established? Via the antahkarana, they have put in 3 seeds of consciousness. So that seed is what we put it here, or we call them as atoms. And you have the mental atom, you have the astral atom, and you have the physical atom. Okay, so now you on the bigger picture, again coming back to the logoic creations, you have a bigger hierarchy. So from the one, you see that you have 2, which is the spirit and the matter, and then they have a combination of both of them as consciousness. So from that one became 2, and that 2 had a joint consciousness. So therefore from 1 you have 3. Now, from this three came a 12 creative hierarchy, which few of the people call them as zodiacs or the 12 archangels, etc. And then you also have 7 planetary logoi for our scheme of evolution, which we discussed about it in the solar system. So now in this 12 creative hierarchy, 4 are liberated, 1 is on the verge of liberation, and you have 7 who are supporting. That is, right now in our life pattern, which you and I are operating on a daily lives, these 7 creative hierarchies are helping us have our life forms. So who are those? They're broadly categorized into 2. We call them as devas, or in few of the text in Secret Doctrine, she also uses the words of the flames of Venus, etc. I'm not getting into those details, but what I'm trying to tell you is that we do have their references, we do have their mentions, which is there in the literature. So, but broadly, they're into 2 types. They have some forms, so they are called as Rupa Devas, and they do not have forms, so we call as Arupa Devas. So these Arupas are called as the fiery breath, the twofold units, and the triads. Now, these 3 people are working on the higher triad who awaken the Atma, the Buddhi, and the Manas in your field of existence. And then stepping down, we have the monads, which is being created via this Arupas gave life to the Rupas. So we have that 4th ones who are helping us right now, and which is like manifest. They help us manifest, build a ray, like what we saw, the will, wisdom, activity, each one predominant in its own fashion. So build a ray, and then they also give you the permanent atoms, and then they vivify the spiral A and influence the personality. So in each round, like what we discussed in the solar system, there is a particular scheme of matter which will come into its full activity and again get into dormancy. So that one is all done by the monads. And next, you also have makaras. Now these also called as asuras. They are the ones who attach atom to the atman. And then you have the Agnishwatas who came from the chain 2, and they give the intellectual evolution in man. That is basically the mind principle which is developed, the analytical component of the mind which has been developed, and the judgments and the opinion and the memory which is developed. All this comes from the Agnishwatas. And then we have the Barhishats who gave the physical evolution. So you and I are having this physical framework is all coming from the Barhishats. They majorly, if I remember it right from the Secret Doctrine, Blavatsky mentions that we came from the moon, right? So she would say that we took the Barhishat Pitrus who came from the lunar Pitrus. Right. Now, the next concept which we are talking about, like what I expressed, there is group souls which are created. So for the mineral, for the vegetable, and for the animal kingdoms, we have the group souls. So from the monads, you have the higher triads, and from the higher triads, they create triple walls in which these life forms will be animated. What are those triple forms? We'll look at it later. But this is the anatomy which we have. So there are these triple forms, the triple wall of the group soul, within which each personalities work, and then they break one scheme of the matter and they move on to the next scheme, or they move on to the next plane of their existence. And that is how we have the 7 primary group souls which is being created. Okay. And how does this operate? So from one group soul, okay, there is a division. You remember that in science we have studied about mitosis and mitochondrias, or mitosis and mucosis, something like that. So where it is like there is a cell, and then the nucleus of the cell gets divided and it gets separated, and then 2 cells are born. So the similar way is what is happening here. So from the group souls, there is a division which happens, and then that fragment comes itself and develops itself into another set of group soul to work on itself, unless it becomes a human being. Because in human being, it's a complete individualized entity. Till then, it is always in the group they work. So that is why, they say that from getting the human birth is much is the most difficult thing to happen, and it's the most gifted and the fortunate. Agreed. But at the same time, let us also remember, at least according to the theosophy, that once you come into the human scheme, or once you come into the human kingdom, there is no backprop. You don't get back unless you will have a human consciousness, but there are chances you take an animal form, which is very, very rare. I'm telling you, it's very, very rare, but there is no back looking. But that's something which we need to understand it very clear, because in our scriptures it is being told that person born as a human in a particular lifetime became an animal in the next lifetime. So that rarely happens, and that's clarified in the book as well. So let us understand that. So like what I explained, the monads, they hire, and then there is a formation of this dividing wall, and then there is a fission which takes place. So they start themselves separating, and so you have the group souls getting into two different groups. And similarly, from the group of animals, again, it starts splitting, and then we become one individualized aspect of a human. Okay, so therefore, monad plus there are the intellectuals which we discussed, the rupas and the arupas. So there are the intellectuals or the manasa dhyanis, that's another terminology which we use, and the lunar pitras. All this together created somebody called as man. So if we have something called as human, please do not think that it is not about this physical 6 foot tall being which we're talking about. We're talking about a spiritual entity, okay, who is in control of the other kingdoms and who also helps the other kingdoms reach the stage which he has reached. That's a responsibility which is given to us. And all these planes, okay, all these planes are used as vehicles for the divine expression. So when you call them as vehicles, the terminology which we apply here is called as upadhi, which means vehicle. Okay, so you have the higher phases of activity, then you have the intellectuals, the solar devas or the agnishvattas, giving you that intelligence consciousness, and then that has to be reflected upon into your physical form, and that is what is called as the chayas or the shadows creating the physical body. And these three things put together is what you and I have as man. So please let us understand what our potential is. Okay, it doesn't mean that tomorrow you go around controlling or beating the animals and calling themselves as masters. That's not what we're trying to do. In fact, we're helping them to reach the consciousness which we have reached. Rather, we have to take those steps on a spiritual level to individualize them. Clear? So like what I said, in the causal framework, we deal with the principles, we deal with the laws, we deal with the fundamentals. So here, what is the conclusion we are drawing? We're giving you the conclusion or the principle of the law of cycles. So the law of cycles has 7 stages. From the source came down as life, and from the life, again, you get back to the source where you were there. So from the father, the son is born, and again, the son gets back to his father. So this happens in 7 stages. So he gets down in the stages of 1, 2, and 3. It happens as involution, and then it takes another path of evolution. So from the spirit, he came down, he descended into the matter. And again, there is an equilibrium which he reaches. And that equilibrium he reaches, if I'm right, in the vegetable kingdom. And again, in the animal kingdom, it is the spirit which starts to increase its constitution or increase its speed, its level of activity, and the matter starts subduing. Basically, what are we talking about is that the spirit starts controlling the matter rather than the matter controlling the spirit. So that's what happens in the evolution phase. So currently you and I are in the evolution phase. Now this process of involution is in the Sanskrit is termed as pravritti or pravritti marga, and the other portion is called as the nivritti marga. Okay, so why are we distinct? Like what I said few minutes ago, we are carrying a sense of responsibility to help our other kingdoms reach the space where we have reached. So you begin the career as ego, passing of the first of the great initiations, and we are gifted that chance of attaining the adoption. So thus to gain this is the aim of animal kingdom. All right, so for every portion of development, we are built with boundaries. Let me check the time. Okay, we have only 4 minutes. So we are given boundaries, and with that boundaries, we develop ourselves. And once we become individual portions, then we are as a individual living entity in whom we have our being and our expression of the divine monad. So how does this individualization happen? The Atman in the physical, the Buddhi in the astral, the Manas happens in the mental body. So you individualize them either via your physicalities, by the schemes of evolution, or via giving them emotions, so you individualized, or with your thoughts, you thought bigger, 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 and that's how you became much more individualized person. This is not much needed. Yes. So the various stages, you first had the first lunar men who formed in the earth period, and then when they came down as beings, you have the basket weaves, which gave them the causal body or the skeleton framework, and within which the third lunar men came down and have their existences, and from them we are the putras. So that is why amritasya putraha vayam is the terminology which is being used. And apart from this, there are also other living forms who have individualized themselves too soon, who jumped into the human kingdom at much an early stage. We're not going to get into those details, but there are also other ways of unconventional individualization. There are sometimes through pride. There are some about 2 million souls who have individualized. Through fear, also people have individualized. That's beautiful, right? And then through power, people have been individualized, and also through affectionate thought, people have individualized themselves. Okay, so as a human being, we have the causal body. The causal body being the vehicle of the ego. What does it have? It's the thinking principle. It's a true thinker. He's also the receptacle or the storehouses of all your incarnations, for whom the hour never strikes. And he provides the material for the physical, astral, and the mental bodies for their scheme of expression. Okay, so it appears as a ovoid 18 inches from the surface of the physical body. So around 1.5 feet above, you will see that if clairvoyantly seen, it is seen as an ovoid, and that is basically our forms. And if you're not much a developed causal body, it looks like a bubble. But a much more developed causal body, where the schemes of expression are complete, where there is a complete control of the ego with the personality, and a much developed bodies, it seems that those lines of communication, those channels or energetic channels of communication, clairvoyantly looked like a basket weave. So they call those souls as basket weave souls. Okay. I'm not getting into the causal thought for the time. Yes, but let's make ourselves very clear that what is it that the causal body is trying to do. He talks through symbols. So that is why in deep meditation, sometimes we get symbols, and through the symbols is where the communication happens. So it is just like the genius, okay? With one note striking into the chords, the entire music is created. And with the other group souls who are also joining into that same wavelength or that same frequency of music, there is a beautiful orb or an aura of that brilliant expression of the Jivatman. That divine ideation happens, and that is what we call this as a true manifestation of the divine ideation. Okay. So the ego classifies, combines, and arranges all the things put together, and it sends it to the brain as impulse, and we receive them as some sort of intuitive vibrations, which they call as buddhic consciousness. Do we have time, or are we running short of time?
How much remaining, Brother Mathurnath?
We have 5 more slides, so I think.
Okay, please let us complete. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So now coming back from that divine ideation, there are certain schemes or the plans which has been present for the ego to express himself from as per the divine plan. So that bigger ideation, and then from that, this particular ego operates and creates his way of expression. All this thing is also one level of understanding, which you and I in the normal parlance call this as karma. Okay, so from that bigger picture of Sanchita, you extract one, and which becomes the cause of why you're existing, and that is your prarabdhi. The ego uses this prarabdhi, creates thought forms, and gives you the opportunities to express yourself in these lower bodies. And then you have the physical body given by the devas, through which you work or you have the activity. Okay. So I think this is the last slide which we're coming up. Therefore, this entire process in which you have your expression, we call in the theosophical literature as temperament. They say that this person is always like this. This person always behaves this way. He has an anguished temperament. He has a serene temperament. Okay, but if you see, the normal words which you and I use is only to reflect our emotions. But here in the theosophy, we are always on the aspirations or on the higher platform. So we always give the bigger picture. So for us, the temperament means that the time and the keynote of the person who's deciding the time and the place of the physical birth, and who's born under its astrological star. Basically, what we're talking about is that the astrological star, which in that bigger scheme of evolution, where he is to be born, in which desha, kala, and for what he's born, the nimitta. That nimitta is what they call as karma. Okay, so in that nimitta in which he is born, and thus we have temperaments associated to the star, and not the star having such temperaments. Meaning what? That it is the ego who is in the control of the evolution of the person, and not that the astrological implications which is creating about the persons. So that's where we need to understand that the astrology works, but the astrology deals with the personality. But the moment there is this antahkarana which is developed, and there is a bigger consciousness of the ego with the personality, and similarly then the ego also tries to elevate his consciousness to be one with the monad, and there is a further bigger personality which is happening. So there is an upper higher triad, and then there is a lower triad. Put together, you see the six-pointed star, and that's basically the emblem of the Theosophical Society. What are we trying to say here is that the complete unification of the ego and the personality, and one such technique for it is the meditation. And for that meditation, the ego and the personality together have to give some sort of an attention and a focus, and that is where this unification happens. And so basically, what is the aim? The aim of the human evolution is not to have an antakarana, but have a complete being of the ego, the personality, and the monad. And these three things put together, aligned, expressing itself on all the planes in a complete manner, is what we call this as at one meant, through attunement, or rather attunement. Okay, so at one meant in order to have attunement. That's exactly what we are trying to do here. So basically, the causal body is just for you to understand that have that wisdom. Think, say for example, you and I are one. How long does it going to take to just realize this? It's just a matter of an impulse, right? Nothing big, but it's only that intellectual process which tells you how you're different, how you're mine, and then the similarities extra. But just to have the wisdom that you and I are one, it's done. And that is where we are. So this is where the causal body is trying to convey. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Mathurnath.
Thank you so much.
Once again for sharing with us such a vast subject once again, with so much limitation of time with us and all our brothers and sisters. And you shared with us, of course, the evolution, the manifestation, and evolution of our bodies. And at the same times, you talked about the group soul and individualization, and how the making of causal body is a very significant step in the whole evolutionary journey of the Jivatma. And before that, there is certain other rules and regulations which are guiding the Jivatma, but after the causal body is formed, we are on our own. So that's pretty much about it. But I am sure our brothers and sisters may be having some inputs or some queries about it. So now we open the floor for any questions. And Sister Avan Patel has raised her hand. Sister Avan, would you like to unmute yourself kindly, please?
Sister Avan, we are sending a request.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, it is unmuted. Yes, wonderful talk, Brother Mathurnath. But I feel you have combined 3 books into one. Man, Whence, How, and Whither. That book is also having most of the inputs that you have given today. And I recollected, because I have done this book in my class, which took me almost a year, which you want to finish it within 1 hour. Secondly, that is why I asked Shikhar which book he is dealing with. Then another book, Man, Visible and Invisible.
Invisible.
You
Yes.
know, that. And the third one, The Casual Body. I haven't read Casual Body. I mean,
Oh, okay.
Causal Body.
Causal
Sorry,
body.
Causal
Yeah.
Body.
It's
So
okay.
I
You're
will have
casually in
to
it, so yeah.
I think you have tried to combine 3 books into one in a beautiful way. But my mind does not accept all these things after a Sunday lunch and a little rest and all that. So
Yeah.
I will have to go through this again. And I request Shikhar, last time you had sent us the whole thing, you know, remember? Solar
Yes, yes.
system. And one thing, this book is written by Powell, whereas
Yes.
the books which I have done in my class is by Leadbeater.
Yes.
Of course, truth is same, contents are same, but the way of presenting may be a little different. And because it is concised, all your diagrams are not so very visible, you know, so
Okay.
very clear. But
Okay.
anyway, all these diagrams are there in the Causal, the book
Yes, ma'am.
which you have
Yes.
dealt with.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Sister
And-
Aban, and yes, since you have been conducting the study in MTF, it's a very good thing to share that A. Powell has written a series of books on bodies, and what he has done, he has consolidated all the matter from Annie Besant, Leadbeater, and other writers. So in his books, you can find the reference to all these books that you are saying.
Yes.
So it's very important if we as theosophical student go through this Mr. Powell's book, and which we are having in the form of Brother Mathurnath, one book every, or one body every month. So we are lucky to have
He
him.
always gives me the fiat, okay? He tells me that book which takes years to read, you do it in 1 hour. I tell him you give me this challenge
you
every
see,
time.
1 minute, 1 year to do it, because I used to do it only on Fridays.
Yeah.
Only Friday, 1.5 hours at Blavatsky Lodge. So naturally, and in between, there may be holidays in between. I may take some leave. And so it takes time. And what I feel, repetition is very much required when you do these books. You just can't flitter away like this. These are not novels that you can just absorb it immediately.
It's a concept which we are dealing. Yes.
And then again, after 7 days, when you come back, you have to recapitulate something, you know.
Okay.
And most of the people don't have these books. I have done the books on only Xerox copies taken from Adyar. So, you know, that makes a lot of difference. Anyway, thank you very much. You have done. A young man or a young boy, I don't know what can I say about you. You are really very much on the going up and up and up. And our master's blessings will be with you.
Thank you. So just to add that word, from the man wins, it's basically Powell has done that surgery, okay? He's done that levels by levels, he has taken it, and then he's introspected each level and looked in detail, and then he has
So
stopped.
when that is why I asked Shikhar, which book he's dealing with.
All of them are saying the same thing, actually. That's what I said. No, it's all Ekakantis only. Everybody says the same thing.
Anyway, you have done a wonderful job. And I recapitulated so many things whilst seeing your whole thing. Congratulations for all this. And thank you for giving us the opportunity, Pragya Studio, for having such wonderful young chap in midst of all us and teaching us something which is really, really needed at this hour and at this time. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining, Sister
Aban, and everyone. And actually, yes, it's what we were talking at the beginning. You go through these books once and twice, and every time that you read them, you get a new thing, a new learning.
Exactly.
So
and you feel whether you really did it well first time or you have missed something, because you know, we go on getting new meanings out of all those things which are same, but yet our mind gets opened up, you know.
Yeah, and this all in this work that Bro Mathurnath is doing is like motivating us to go even deeper to the books. Yeah, thank you very much. So we have also the hand raise of Brother Balaji. Brother Balaji, if you want to unmute yourself, please, to convey your question to Brother Mathurnath. Thank you.
Yeah, good evening.
Yes, you are audible.
My question is, as in evolution or the process we say from mineral to plants, plants to animal, and plant then to human being. So here we say about group soul and individual soul. So my question is, in that mineral plant and animal plant and all the other plants, we say that there is a divine or a perfect plan is there. So if that is the case, actually, the practical sense, if we think in the side of J. Krishnamurti or Ramana Maharshi, what they say is everything is perfect, and it is due to our ignorance. We are putting certain conditions, and we are thinking this is good, that is bad. So, in your what you call theoretically and your practical sense, how do this match this class and practical applicability of theosophy? I would like to know from your point of view.
That's a beautiful question. It's very simple. The causal body gives you attention. It actually gives you the power to have a sort of attention. Okay. Now, this attention comes by how? Comes from what means? From awareness. And how does the awareness come from? Having a focus. That's it. So the practical aspects of theosophy, I still remember in my first class of theosophy, when they were talking about the astral body, there was a question raised. If I'm feeling angry, how do I look into it from theosophical perspective? And I still remember Dr. NCR was taking that session. He said, you have to think. And the question is like, things are all blocked, right? When the person is angry, how does he think? But the next point is what he was trying to say at that particular point. In the theosophical sense of that broader thinking, which we call the actual thinking, is that just be focused on what is happening at that particular point of time. That's all. That's exactly what you and I are trying to do as theosophists. We're trying to be aware simultaneously that there is a unification of all things happening around you, but at the same time, there is also a uniqueness which is within you. So you as a being are unique, but at the same time, you're also connected with every other being in this planet, or even across planets. That's it. Okay, beyond that, the purpose, the conditioning, and all that things is something which the intellect needs its sort of work and activity. And for that, you require some attributes and you give those attributes to it. But at the end of the day, beyond all of this, you exist as a being. And this being is no different than that spirit which we are talking about. So in essence, we are no way different. But at the same time, we are also unique when it comes to that hierarchy of existence. That's all. So what is that we are again dealing here with in theosophy, especially on the causal body, because we deal with abstract thought, is one more principle or the law, which you call as the law of paradox. Everything is there, but nothing is there. And there is nothing, but there is everything. I am in everything, but I am by myself an individualized being. So each thing, these two things are simultaneously existing. And if you look at it, even all the religions talk about it in its own way. I'm not getting into those details for want of time, but yes, this is how we are been existing. So from my side, on the theosophical perspective, just focus for some time. Look how beautifully you're blending with everything around you, but at the same time, you are there as an individual entity as well.
Thank you, Brother Mathurnath. Thank you, Balaji, for your question. We have among us some very senior theosophists. If they would like to make some inputs, Shindeji, Ramanujachariji, Ramanji. Dr. Ramanujachariji, would you like to say something?
Dr. Ramanujachari, please unmute yourself. I guess. Yeah, thank you, thank you. Yes, yes, now you are.
Yes. I congratulate Mr. Mathurnath for the beautiful talk. And I would like him to talk separately after the series is over on the group soul concept and the permanent atom aspect also.
Sure.
I'm always harping on the bodies and the principles and correlation between them. He has done well in bringing consciousness into the lower bodies and how it works and all that. I really congratulate him, and I would like him to study more on the permanent atom, the concept of group soul, and also the auric egg at his convenience. Auric egg, according to me, is the Mahakarana Sarira. It's an advancement of the causal body. I would like him to study those things also and present to the people. Thank
Yes.
him again and again.
Thank you. You've been inspiring us all this day, sir. So just bless us that we carry on what you're doing with that depth and that clarity at which you are conveying it to everybody. So we just require your blessings and your wishes that we also carry that as keeping you as a source of inspiration.
It's very good.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Ramanujachari ji. And Professor Shinde ji, would you like to say something? Otherwise, we'll, please unmute, kindly unmute yourself.
Yeah. Now it's okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Well, am I audible now? No?
Yes, sir.
Yes, what I want to say, Mathurnath, first, congratulations. Wonderful. You have explained very nicely, very nicely. And as Aban Patel said, within 1 hour, you have told so many things. And really wonderful explanation also. Your understanding is also good. And I don't know whether you have read this book, Space, Time and Self by E. Norman Pearson. Have you read it?
No, sir.
No, I will give you that. It is available in bookshop also.
Okay.
And he has done very nice diagrammatic presentation. And that will be more helpful. Same thing, the causal body, whatever you have diagram you have given, he has made it very simple. And what you explained, it is explained very well. And as Ramanujachari said, permanent atoms, etc., everything is given in that. If you read that one, that will be more better. You just remember space, time, and self.
Okay. By?
These are the 3 great illusions. And he has written that by Norman Pearson, E. Norman Pearson.
Okay. Okay.
Pearson, wonderful book. And what I think, as you said, very nicely explained, spirit and matter, and you gave a direction for evolution. So we are looking at matter as a inertia, etc., etc. But matter is essential, actually. We have to cooperate with the matter. As our international president said, this is a personality which needs to be paralyzed. Means they are all Deva kingdoms, actually. Prithvi, Ap, Tej, Vayu, Akash, we all call them as the Devas. And how we can cooperate with the Deva kingdom, that is very essential, because we have to work with them. And all these Deva kingdom, have you gone through the Deva kingdom or not? I don't know. But I will give you about the Deva kingdom, because always man is demonstrating the aspect of divinity, but Devas are demonstrating the attributes of divinity. So that is very important. And whether you have gone through the heavenly man.
Yes, sir.
The word heavenly man is very important. We are, that also must be pointed out. What Ramanujachari said, all this, you people now go deep into it, because you have this capacity to understand and explain. I will give you the one more book. Can you come to the library? And also I invite you, Shikharji, now the Hiteshji is coming, not on 28th, but on 27th morning. This is a little bit changed. We have to inform. And I invite Mathurnath for that also, because he can interact very nicely. You know, Yuga project, what is that?
Yuga Parivartan project, sir.
Yuga Parivartan project, world transformation. He is the founder of that. He is visiting Theosophical Society on 27th morning to the library. So I invite you to attend that meeting.
Okay.
It is a very good intellectuals, they are interacting. So if you come there, that will be good. And once again, I congratulate you. I am very eager to listen you actually. And I am very delighted. And I was waiting for your talk. I asked Shikharji, very few are attending, but we need more attendance for your talk, because it is a wonderful talk. Everybody should attend. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I say something?
Yes.
Shinde Saab, aapne just can you tell me the name of the book and proper name of the space?
Time.
Professor Shinde, you are
Space,
muted.
time. I can't hear you. You are muted.
Space, time, and self. Space,
time, and self.
And self.
No, but written by
E. Norman
Pearson.
Okay.
E. Norman Pearson.
Because I'm not getting on my Google.
No, it is in our Bloodsky Lodge, TPH publication.
No, just to know whether the book is available or not, because I have to find out from my
available.
Google.
It must be available.
You can borrow from the library.
Even in library.
Yes, Avanti, it is available in TPH here. You just have to write the email to tphindia@gmail.com.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, the Professor Shinde, for all this wonderful book suggestion that I am sure all of us can take, and those wonderful suggestions and advices. And okay, before we close our meeting, if there is any other question or comment, maybe Brother Raman or Brother Taral Munshi, if you want to add something, make a comment, we will be very grateful to listen to you. If you can unmute, Brother Raman, please. I can see you are telling something, but you are muted.
Mathurnath, I just written a comment here.
Okay,
I will very well say it, that you have got this amazing capacity to, summarize everything written in volumes and volumes, because nobody has that much time left now. So I think you are a very important key to the modern theosophy, who has this skill of summarizing everything together in an hour's time. So I would request you to keep this format on. It is a treasure format. And at least because of this 1 hour talk, we have so many questions and so many reactions happening around since last 25 minutes. That is what is needed here. You said that you have to feel and you have to understand your position. So this is the position of current theosophy, that we need. Nobody has that time of 6 or 4 months for a single book. So whatever you are doing is a wonderful thing, and please keep it repeating for different subjects. Sure. People like us would be honored to listen to you, and really standing ovation to you.
Actually, Brother Taral, we will have Mathurnath in next month again, and then in December and January. So it's
I'll shake your mental bodies, then I will shake your astral bodies and trick them. At that time I'll make you dance.
We are having a meeting.
You are a nutrition shaker.
Yeah, exactly.
So you are a theosophical shaker.
Yeah.
You provide a nutrition to us in a single dose. We don't have time for 20 doses, not that long life also. So
Okay.
please keep it doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
But sometimes you need details, not only the superfluous thing. And so
We can go in
you cannot underestimate people who take 1 month or 6 months for one book, which is 400 pages. Because Theosophy is not a storybook. It is a book which is to be digested, you know. And
Abhanji, I am not dishonoring the long talks. What I am trying to say that Mathurnath has also read it for 400 pages, but he have their skill to summarize into 40 pages. We should honor that skill because it's a very rare skill.
You are very right, but there are two different.
That is the need of this hour.
Yes.
Yeah, actually, I would just like to say that the talks that we have like this, of course, you cannot explain as both. It has both its. The main thing is if it can spark the spirit of studying in all our delegates, like Mathurnath left 2 questions for us to find out during his talk that we have to find out the answer.
Give homework.
So that spirit, if it is arising, then this lecture is successful. But on the other hand, the kind of study that Sister Aban Patel is carrying on, that has its own benefit, that you have to go deeper and deeper. So both aspects are valuable and appropriate at their own place. So congratulations to both of you.
Exactly.
You know, everything has a good side as well as bad side. So, you know, you have to accept it as it is, you know.
Brother Ramanji,
I'm a person of old thoughts. So we go through the books. You all are young. So you just go like this, quick, 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 quick. Anyway, thank you very much. I have got another meeting to attend, so I'll take your leave.
Thank you, Sister Aban.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, all of you. Thank you.
So Mathurnath had made a very complete presentation. And the advantage, as Brother Shikhar also had mentioned, it kindles the interest in people to read the original book. Because we do come to know about many things, which otherwise we get to know only by reading the book in the full form. So that way, this has been really a very useful presentation by Brother.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Raman. And I think we are now almost on the dot and no more questions are there. So we are going to proceed with closing. But before closing, we would like to share a very special event coming up next Sunday on Pragya CS Studio. And with none other than our International Secretary of the Theosophical Society, Sister Maria Artama. But the format of this meeting is not a talk, but rather a dialogue. So Pragya CS Studio cordially invites you all for a dialogue with Maria Artama, the International Secretary of the Theosophical Society, Sunday, 31st October, and at the same time, 5 p.m. And all of you are invited. Please do come. And there will be some sharing from her about her journey, about Theosophy, and also the upcoming International TS Convention. So all of you are invited. Please join next Sunday, 5 p.m. And now coming to the closing session, first of all, we would like to thank on behalf of Pragya CS Studio, Catalina and myself, to Brother Mathurnath, who have very with an open heart accepted our proposal to carry on this study, one talk a month on each of the bodies. So we are really grateful to him for sharing his hard work of many spreading over many months and years in very short time with us. We are also thankful to all our delegates who took time off to attend these sessions from different places, not only in India, but outside India also. And now let us come together and with all our will and thought power, let us use it for the welfare of the whole manifestation. May all become happy. May none fall ill. May all see auspiciousness everywhere. May none ever feel sorrow. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Thank you once again, everyone. And now we'll be closing this session. So if anyone wants to say their wishes to Mathurnath, they can unmute and do it.